What's going on, everybody? It's Adam Ayala, your modern psychoanalytical relationship specialist. Today, we're back on Your Tango, and we're looking over this article called Why Guys Don't Jump into Relationships Quickly. Let's check this out. So, this is written by a partner of Your Tango by Howard Rudnick. So, this is in a list, but it's pretty short. So, we're just going to read through it and see what we can get out of this. Dating is awful. So remember, this is a guy. This is a man speaking. There, I said it. You probably agree. And now we can finally make peace with the fact that dating is the least fun thing to do. I'm interested in his story. Unfortunately, dating is how we determine whether we want to spend the rest of our lives with someone in a progressive modern culture. Ooh, I don't know. Maybe this is a regressive modern culture way of thinking about this. Can you tell someone likes you? So they linked a video here. All right. At this point, I'd gladly be set up for an arranged marriage. Like, this guy, he's fed up. Whoa, what happened? If it meant no more awkward conversations and experiences my friends and I laugh about immediately afterwards. Oof. On the flip side, our innermost struggle comes from needing another human being to love us. This is very true. This is something that we are born with. This is about one of the first few feelings that develop. Not the first feeling that develops in us in infancy, but very close to the beginning. To say the least, I've realized that both in my bachelorhood and that of my male friends, after a long term relationship, we're usually not as quick to rush into a new relationship. So, this has actually been verified statistically. Guys take longer to get out of long term relationships or to recover from a long term relationship dissolving. To be clear, casual sex or hookups are different than an emotional committed relationship. Okay, so it's making sure you know that doesn't mean bouncing around or casual sex, one night stands. In my own personal experiences, leaving one relationship was overwhelming, and I did not want to pull all my focus and attention into another relationship again. I wanted to experience being single, going out with my friends, participating in miserable social experiences like picking up someone at the bar or swiping for the sake of swiping. We enjoy the chase. Yeah, so this is one thing about men. Men do enjoy the chase. But this is sounds like such a miserable chase, right? He didn't say this in a good way. So why is he this there's an enjoyment in the masochism, right? Of having to swipe and all this stuff. It's not something. Men are not jumping into relationships quickly after previous ones because we enjoy the chase. That's fresh feeling of the unknown. That fresh feeling of the unknown. We also don't want to feel completely vulnerable, let our guards down, or be the one to catch feelings first. Okay? Sounds like from past experiences, learning from past experiences. This is someone who was naive, who is now dealing with not wanting to be naive, which is good. Being naive in relationship is not a mature thing to do, but going to the extreme and being a pessimist is also not good. It's not mature. Okay, so we see a struggle. Yep. I once saw a quote on Instagram that stuck with me, essentially saying those who jump from relationship to relationship have a problem being alone. Those who choose to be alone are the ones that are secure. Those who jump from relationship to relationship have a problem being alone. So this is monkey branching, people who just swing from one relationship to another. And that's not exclusive to any gender. All male and females, everybody does this. Doesn't matter your sexuality. This happens. Those who choose to be alone are the ones that are secure. I'm going to have to disagree with this statement. Those who jump from relationship to relationship have a problem with being alone. Okay. Those who choose to be alone are the ones that are secure. Okay, so I'm gonna be okay with this statement because I'm thinking about the word alone. So when someone is alone, they can get much work done. But those who jump from relationship to relationship have a problem with being lonely. They are lonely, so they're wanting someone to fulfill the parts that they don't have within themselves. So these are the people who say, like, oh, I'm out there looking for my better half. Instead of working on themselves and making themselves a full person, they don't want to do the work. They just want someone to complete them. So this is a very destructive person to be or to be with in a relationship. And then those who choose to be alone are the ones that are secure. Yeah, so those who can be alone and choose to be alone are very secure. I believe I read a quote, and I won't be able to quote exactly, but someone explained that this might have been Dr. Stephen Mitchell in his book, Can Love Last? It might have been that book. I don't have to look it up for you. But the quote says that the intensity of the intensity of love in your relationship, how passionate your relationship is, doesn't show how much you really love that other person. It just showed how lonely you really were. All right, we're gonna keep going on. I think about this quote each and every day. Being content with what I have in a relationship I'm already engaging in, whether it be professional, familial, or peer, I'm not void of happiness or the need to be completed emotionally and romantically by someone else. While I'm sure that there are many guys who truly suffer from Peter Pan syndrome, act like total scum, and give the gender a bad rap, truly, we are all not the worst. Okay, so Peter Pan syndrome, in its most basic form, is guys who don't grow up, guys who always want to be a bachelor, for instance, or guys who never leave their mom's basement. And when we get a little bit deeper into it psychoanalytically, it's about people who just use and abuse other people, like Peter Pan used and abused the Lost Boys, and people who also are so severely narcissistic that they can't connect to a real person. Just like Peter Pan could never connect to Wendy, who was a real girl, and he was very attached to Tinkerbell, who was not of the same species. They could never have a real relationship. So that's the Peter Pan syndrome when we get a little bit deeper. And I might bring someone in to talk about it. I know they wrote their master's thesis on Peter Pan and this whole idea. And it'd be really interesting for all you to learn. Act like total scum. So these are just people who don't qualify for a relationship. Bad rap. Well, not the worst. Yeah, most guys aren't the worst. You just hear about the bad stories more than you hear about the good stories, because most of the ones that are good guys are taken. There are many men out there who are kind, sweet, and genuinely want to connect. Yep. But on our own terms. We don't like ultimatums. No, never give an ultimatum. You give an ultimatum, most good men will walk away. They're not into that. That's just control. Feeling pressured to define a relationship or have forced unnatural conversations that we both know aren't enjoyable. So there's some good and bad in this paragraph. But on our own terms, this may be too controlling, right? It's all or nothing, but on our own terms is an ultimatum. So if you don't like ultimatums, you can't give ultimatums. This will be my critique of that. I can understand what they mean by their own terms, because if you've been hurt, you want to defend yourself as much as possible, but you can't say no ultimatums and give an ultimatum. Feeling pressured to find a relationship. This is a good request from mostly men will give this request, that they don't want to feel pressured to define a relationship. If you've been together for 3 years and you live together, you might have to define a relationship. If you've been together for 8 months, it's probably not appropriate to define a relationship. Also matters how the relationship formed. If it came out from a one night stand, then yeah, you're probably not going to get the relationship fine, because the foundation of a relationship isn't one that's really there to progress long term. So this is complicated. This is complicated, but regardless, you have to listen to men when they say this, and there's a reason. And you should. And if a guy says this to you, I feel like you're pressuring me to define a relationship. You should ask why, instead of attacking them and saying, "Oh, you just don't want to commit," or blah blah blah. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why guys don't want to get married today, or have forced unnatural conversations that we both know aren't enjoyable. Well, tough. If conversations aren't enjoyable, you have to do them. That's one of the biggest things about long-term relationships. It's not all enjoyable, and it shouldn't be all enjoyable. So that's when you got to tough out and learn how to deal. You have to learn how to deal with tension. The idea of being in a relationship isn't scary to us, and we're not afraid of commitment. The deal. I want to talk to the author to understand there's this context behind these statements, right? That we're not understanding. Why is this being said? The idea of being in a relationship isn't scary to us, and we're not afraid of commitment. We can imagine that someone might have said this to the author, so they're fighting back towards someone in their mind. This is a conversation they're having with someone in their mind, it almost sounds like. So, don't know what to say about that. I don't know what to say about that just yet. I might come back to it. However, we're hesitant about entering something new with the wrong person. Yes. So, yes, being vigilant and mindful. Okay. Why start another relationship when in the back of our minds failure is looming? Why is failure looming in the back of your mind? Why is that being brought to this next relationship? At times, the glass is half empty, and this is a way for us to protect ourselves. Okay, so self-protection. But self-protection will ultimately just mean you're alone. That's why it's called self-protection. It's not group protection. Given the notion that it is okay for men to be emotional or vulnerable, we prefer not to be. Yeah, this is unfortunate. The American Psychological Association even made this worse recently with their guides on working with men and boys. They really messed up. One big reason I can't stand the American Psychological Association when it comes to working with men and boys. They've really done a lot of damage in the world of psychology, therapy, and social work. It's unfortunately part of our code, and it takes a special person to change that. Is it part of our code to not be emotional or vulnerable? I'm going to disagree. So I just want to get the name off the author here. Okay, this is not working with me. So the name of the author, Howard Rudnick, right? I'm going to have to say, Mr. Rudnick, that men are just as emotional and vulnerable as women, even if we prefer not to be. And it's an unfortunate part of our code. No, it's really not part of our DNA or our genetics. We haven't found this in our DNA and genetics that we have the closed off gene or we're missing the emotional gene. This is not true. This has a lot to do with how we are raised, how we've historically and currently are being raised as men and boys. And also there is historically and currently a non-desire to understand how men are emotional and how men are vulnerable. I believe I give this, I talk about this idea in one of my videos on sexless marriages when I was rebutting one of Ronan Man's videos on sexless marriages and the MGTOW idea of sexless marriages. And he's talking about how couples therapists are useless. And I was agreeing with him that a lot of couples therapists are useless because couples therapy, too often when you're working with like psychologists and marriage and family therapists who really adhere strictly to APA guidelines and what the book says and not really working with people, they have the man learn and understand how to listen and communicate the way a woman communicates, but they don't have the woman learn to understand how the man communicates and how to listen to the man. And I'm using men and women here vaguely. It has to do way more with personality traits and not with uh, biological, your genitalia. The genitalia actually don't matter. It has to do with more people who are assertive and the people who are compassionate. So a more correct way to say this is that in marriage and family therapy, therapists way too often make the assertive person learn and understand how the compassionate person speaks, but they don't teach the compassionate person how to understand or learn how the assertive person speaks, right? So this is a big problem. So it's not in our code, it's in a lot of our culture. And it takes a special person to change that. This is true. This is unfortunately true. And it takes yourself to change that. You're the special person. Another person isn't going to fix you. You can have new experiences with another person, but you got to do the initial work. We're trying to work through our baggage. Yes, this is great when people actually try to work through their baggage. Most people aren't, and and the people who say they are, most of the time are faking it, because this is very painful. Why would you want to work through your baggage? I also believe that guys aren't jumping headfirst into new relationships because we're trying to shake off baggage and connections we have with our exes. Yeah. It takes a while for guys to disconnect. Yeah. The saying, the best way to get over someone is to get under someone new, is not always accurate. No, it's not. Sexual promiscuity isn't going to help your emotions. Aside from the real possibility of calling out someone else's name in the bedroom or not fully invested, yeah, you're still attached. Especially if that's a Freudian slip. If you're having sex with a Jennifer and you call out a Sarah, that tells you a lot about your psyche and things that you're not thinking about. The loss of a relationship, especially a long-term one, is like losing a loved one. Yes. One statistic that we see in American men is that, and we're talking about divorce, suicide after divorce. I mean, men already commit suicide at about 80% rate compared to women's 20% rate of suicide, just in general. But when we were looking at divorce, which is the biggest loss of a relationship, and it's supposed to be the longest term one because you made vows, and it's like losing a loved one. Well, when a man and a woman get divorced, you are losing a loved one. You're losing your finances. You're losing your kids. I mean, you're losing a lot of loved ones. For every 10 people who commit suicide because of their divorce, it's like 9.2 of them are men. So men are over 90% more likely to commit suicide after a divorce than women are. And this is something not talked about, and it's not researched very well. But this is a very true statement that you could read over this little line and not think much of it. It's a mourning process, and only you can decide when to rise out of the ashes of it. Yeah, you don't have to do it alone, but you decide. And you need to stay burning for as long as you need to. Once we've reconciled our feelings from the previous relationship and filed them away internally, we're back on the path to be with someone new. Oh, this is totally constructed. This is amazing. Yes, reconciled our feelings from the previous relationship. You gotta reconcile your feelings, and you gotta also, beyond reconciling your feelings, you gotta make sure you don't get into another relationship that would be just like your previous relationship. And this is the biggest mistake men and women make. They go find the same exact person, just with a different face. My advice to those reading this, and I think they've not had great luck with the male species. It's us, not you, for the most part. No, I hate this. This is just male degradation that's just so popular in today's culture. Oh, this is like stoicism at its worst. This is when it gets destructive. We're complex creatures with simple needs. Yes, we're complex creatures. No, we don't have simple needs. We don't just have simple needs. We have some complex needs also. Show us patience. Yes, that's good. Allow us to let you in on our terms and keep an open mind. Allow us to let us in our terms. I wish I understood this more within the context of Mr. Rudnick. So I'm having trouble saying yes or no to this. We're having a really good idea that would give you all something new to think about when he's saying allow us to let us in on our terms. So don't force it, yes, but this is saying more than don't force. Finding the right relationship is tricky and requires a lot of trial and error, but in the end, it may all be worth it. Yeah, maybe. Don't give up on love if you're falling for someone who isn't quite ready. Your Prince Charming is out there. Oof. Don't give up if you're falling in love for someone who isn't quite ready. Um, I usually give the advice when working with people, when I do give advice, to not pursue someone who isn't ready. Because I always ask the person, why are you pursuing someone who isn't ready for a relationship? What's the point of that? What are you resisting on doing if you're going for someone who's unavailable? But that's looking from the pursuer side. From the person who's getting pursued, I mean, it makes us feel nice that we're wanted even though we might not be ready. But why do we want to be pursued when we're not ready? Would then would be the question, right? What's going on? What is that doing for you as the person being pursued but isn't ready? And your Prince Charming's out there. Like there's good men out there. I don't want to call them Prince Charming, but good men out there. 100%. But, okay. So Howard Rudnick is a writer who focuses on dating relationships. And so I'm going to put a link down below with the article, and you can visit their page, Unwritten. So this is actually kind of a tough one for me to really think about. I mean, there's a lot more issues that could be talked about on why guys don't jump into relationships quickly. Guys are terrified of divorce. Guys are terrified of getting into marriages and what that means. I mean, there's a whole lot here, but this is actually a really wonderful article. So I recommend you all read and look up Howard Rudnick's. I guess it's gonna be his blog here under Unwritten. The link will be at the end of this article. And I hope you all enjoyed the commentary. Like, subscribe, click that notification button, share with anyone else. And if you're ever interested in online or in session analytical sessions with me, I'm going to link my information down below, and I'll catch you guys next time.